Hillary Clinton is a head case. Hillary Clinton is a psycho. I feel sorry for Bill Clinton. Hillary Clinton has been a poison for a long time, and she is angry. She didn't get to be president, and she's obsessed with Trump and the Republican Party, and she's just out there lashing out. And of course, they build her up like she's some kind of a stateswoman. No, she's not a stateswoman. She's a nut. So here she is on Indivisible, talking about the plans that the Republicans have for 2024. Now, keep something in mind. Who is she? She's the one that funded the Russia collusion scandal with the dossier. She's the one with the connections to the law firm and the lawyers who tried to set up Donald Trump and topple his administration. She's the one whose surrogates worked with the Federal Bureau of Investigation and, yes, the Obama administration. She is the Svengali behind the whole damn thing. And is it not amazing to you that she's not had to face a single grand jury, a single congressional hearing, a single inquisition of any kind, whereas her victim, Donald Trump, is facing them in a never-ending way? Isn't that amazing to you? Go.
Hello, Indivisibles. I'm here to highlight something that is keeping me up at night. And I know this group really understands what I'm about to say.
Yes, you see, on the right, we have QAnon. I don't even know what QAnon is. I keep hearing of it. But on the left, of course, there's no similar thing. I know this group understands what I'm going to say. She's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Go ahead.
I know we're all focused on the 2022 midterm elections, and they are incredibly important.
Yes, yes.
But we also have to look ahead.
Okay.
Because you know what?
No.
Our opponents certainly are.
Oh.
Right-wing extremists already have a plan to literally steal the next presidential election.
Okay, hold on, folks. Ooh, that was a bad place to stop. Right-wing extremists already have a plan to steal the next election. Isn't that amazing? We have this Joe Biden situation that we've talked about here before, where Joe Biden put out to every department and agency a directive that they are to prepare plans to turn out the vote. Of course, it's nonpartisan. Democrats are always nonpartisan. There's been lawsuit after lawsuit saying we want to see these plans before the midterm election, let alone 2024. Not a single plan has been released by any department. The Department of Justice has stepped in to defend these departments against litigation. So your tax dollars are being used in a nefarious way. We have a Freedom of Information Act, the purpose of which is to reveal this sort of thing to the American people in a timely fashion. The Department of Injustice, headed by Meritless Garland, has its foot on it. They won't release it. And she's out there blaming Republicans who want to destroy the election process. Which Republican is trying to destroy the election process? We see what liars and frauds they are with Georgia. Notice the media doesn't do a look back at the allegations the media, the corporatists, the Democrat Party made about the Republican legislature in Georgia. They actually liberalized their voting system, but they couldn't tolerate the true lack of integrity and rules put in place to make sure things were done the proper way. Go ahead.
And they're not making a secret of it. The right-wing controlled Supreme Court may be poised to rule on giving state legislatures, yes, you heard me that correctly.
No, we heard me that correctly? Okay, slow down. The right-wing Supreme Court. What does right-wing mean? Is that what constitutionalists are? Right-wing? The right wing. Trashing Republicans, trashing the Republic, trashing the Constitution, but they're running on democracy. Oh, why? They believe in democracy. Now, before she drones on, what is she talking about? We've talked about this too. It's this case coming out of North Carolina, where the elected Republican state legislature said we get to make the decisions on how the election process works, you know, as long as it doesn't violate the Constitution, including the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendments, as long as it doesn't violate the 1964 and 65 Civil Rights Act, the 65 being the Voting Rights Act, and they haven't. So what happened is the Democrat state Supreme Court stepped in, as they have all over the country, including Pennsylvania, and said, no, we don't like the way that you have set up the districts in North Carolina, so we're going to change all that. And they changed it to help the Democrats. So the Republican Speaker of the House said, whoa, 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 you don't get to do this. We get to do this. You're justices of the Supreme Court. You're not the part of the body politic that represents the public. You're supposed to be, objective, impartial. And so this case has gone to the U.S. Supreme Court. A similar case almost made it to the Supreme Court out of Pennsylvania in the last election. I've talked about this till I'm blue in the face, which said the same thing, that the state courts or the governor or the Secretary of State or some board of elections or Ernie Grabotsky in some precinct does not have the power to change the state election laws. Under the federal Constitution, that authority belongs to the state legislatures. Now, just to be clear, let me read it to you. Article 2, Section 1, Clause 2. You should have this memorized by now. Each state shall appoint in such manner as the legislature thereof may direct a number of electors equal to the whole number of senators and representatives to which the state may be entitled in the Congress. Now, what does that have to do with redistricting? Everything. Because from that flows your choice of the electors in each congressional district. So what they're saying is, and this is now the mantra, is if the Supreme Court upholds the black letter law in the United States Constitution, and it's not even close, then it's right-wing and it's an attack on our democracy. And they say that because they were successful between 2016 and 2020 going into these states and changing the election laws, even though you had Republican state legislatures, by litigation with these Democrat courts in the states, and by convincing Democrat governors and Democrat secretaries of state to change the election process. Oh, okay, we'll have drop boxes, but that violates the Constitution. And say, well, we've decided we're going to have them, says the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania. Oh, and you don't have to sign the ballots. Oh, and you don't have to date the ballots. Oh, and we're going to count the ballots till a week after the election. That's not in state law. Doesn't matter. We've decided it, says the court in Pennsylvania. Doesn't matter. We decided it, says the court in North Carolina. So they sue in North Carolina. That's the case she's talking about. When her eyes pop out of her head in her bad Nancy Pelosi imitation, that's what she means by destroying democracy. They're going to destroy democracy. The right-wingers are going to... right-wingers. Go ahead.
Legislatures the power to overturn presidential elections. Just think.
Okay, folks, the state legislatures, the power to overturn presidential elections. This is why this country's a loggerheads, almost at knife point, because of liars and demagogues, and she's always been one, like Hillary Clinton, all the way back to Whitewater. Ooh, I turned $10,000 into $100,000 in 13 minutes. How did you do that? By reading the Wall Street Journal. Wow, she's genius. No, that's not what's going on here. The state legislature can't reverse an election, but a state legislature can step in. It can step in. You heard what I read. And it almost stepped in 2000 when the state Florida Supreme Court, loaded by left-wing Democrats, who all had been appointed by a Democrat governor, kept changing the election law. Oh, the Chads, okay. Well, there's a hanging one. Well, who wins? Gore. Okay, that's good. Well, it's not really punched in all the way. Well, who won that precinct? Well, Gore. Okay, that's good. And so finally, they kept changing it and changing. It was becoming quite obvious they were trying to win the election for Gore at the judicial level. And the state legislature decided, the Republicans, to meet and to appoint the electors because of the corrupt Supreme Court. Turns out they didn't have to. Why? Because the United States Supreme Court stepped in and said enough is enough. And several members of the court even pointed to that section of the Constitution and said, plus, you're violating the power that the state legislature has. Go ahead.
If that happens, the 2024 presidential election could be decided not by the popular vote or even by the anachronistic Electoral College, but by state legislatures.
Okay, stop. No election has been decided by the popular vote in the history of America. None. That's why we have the Electoral College. And notice how she defined the Electoral College. They hate the Electoral College. Here's what they want. They want the cities of America, which they control, almost every major metropolitan area, and not in every state, but almost every state. When you control the major metropolitan areas, you control the state. Look at Illinois, it's controlled by Chicago. Look at New York, it's controlled by New York. Look at California, it's controlled by LA and Sacramento and so forth. This is where the Democrats have the most population and the most votes. They want the cities to control the country. So Wyoming has no say in the government. Montana has no say in the government. Other states with small populations have absolutely no say in the government. States that have moderately large populations rarely will have a say in the government. And yet, but for many of these states, we wouldn't have food, we wouldn't have oil, we wouldn't have gasoline, we wouldn't have, you name it. And so the genius of the framers was, in order to have a United States of America, they didn't say, you know what, the most populous states, Virginia, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, you get to control everything. Well, little Delaware wouldn't say, okay, we go along with that. Or some of the southern states, less populated, Georgia and South Carolina, they wouldn't say, oh, we go along with that. Rhode Island eventually wouldn't say, oh, we go along with that. So you don't have pure majority vote. And if you look at the Constitution, the only place that they set up originally for direct elections was the House of Representatives, not even the Senate. The Senate was supposed to represent the state legislatures, not even the state legislatures. There would be no Constitution if this provision in the Constitution I read to you wasn't there. Because the states, all of them, didn't want a runaway central government. They created this federal government. They created this Congress. They created this presidency. They created the Supreme Court. They created the three branches of government. And they preserved for themselves later on in the 10th Amendment explicitly the rest of the power. And the original part of the Constitution is all about specific details on who can do what, as best as you can write them. So when she says the state legislatures are going to choose the president, they always do, in part of the Electoral College. So the Electoral College, the genius of it is it's influenced by the popular vote, but the popular vote is not the final say. The state legislatures are involved too. Congress is even involved at the end with the counting of the electoral votes. In other words, the entire body politic is involved, not just a few metropolitan areas controlling the whole country. What would happen to our country if Hillary Clinton and her ilk succeed? What would happen if the popular vote ruled the day? What would happen if we got rid of the Electoral College? The direct election of senators now, the direct election of the House of Representatives, the destruction of the independence of the Supreme Court and the filibuster so they could ram through whatever they want. What would America become then, ladies and gentlemen? Certainly wouldn't be a republic, and it wouldn't be a democracy either. It'd be a top-down totalitarian regime of one form of tyranny or another.
Want to see more? Sign up for Levin TV.